The future of AI is here, and it is not pretty. 3 rules you need to know. Hey folks, today we're going to talk about the future of AI from the perspective of 2 very smart guys who brought us the 2020 Emmy-winning Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. They also formed a nonprofit organization called the Center for Humane Technology. In March of 2023, this past spring, Tristan and Aza Raskin released a video on the AI dilemma. In this video, they define something they call the 3 rules of humane technology. And we want to take a look at these rules and understand their importance for, everyone's future well-being or lack thereof, because believe it or not, the survival of humanity is a pretty important element in all this. So, rule number 1. When you invent a new technology, you uncover a new class of responsibility. Rule number 2, according to these guys, if the new technology confers power, it will start a race. And rule number 3, if you do not coordinate, that race will end in tragedy. So let's look at a specific example of these 3 rules of humane technology in action. Now, as it happens, Aza Raskin himself is actually the man that we have to thank for something called infinite scroll. You probably know what that is. Now that there's such a thing as infinite scroll, there's actually a new class of responsibility. In other words, people going to scroll, and they're going to scroll infinitely, which is going to affect our ability to do some other things like, eat, sleep, or speak to each other on those terrible occasions when we actually run into each other in real life. Ugh. Second, if infinite scroll confers power, according to the second rule, it will start a race. Well, infinite scroll most certainly did confer power. It conferred power on social media platforms to keep people on their platforms, literally forever. Lastly, the third rule, which is if you do not coordinate, this race will end up in tragedy. So, in other words, while infinite scroll was initially designed to ease the user experience, it was later adopted by all social media platforms, leading to mindless scrolling, an addiction. As infinite scroll inventor Aza Raskin himself has said, quote, "It's as if they're taking behavioral cocaine and just sprinkling it all over your interface. And that's the thing that keeps you coming back and back and back," unquote. Yeesh. Okay. So rule 1 highlights the need for technologists to identify new responsibilities that come with their inventions, such as privacy laws or copyright issues created by these new generative models. For example, what are your rights after I create a really good-looking deepfake of you hanging out in public wearing a giant white puffy coat? I mean, if it happened to the Pope, it can happen to you. Rule number 2 emphasizes that creating technology that confers power will inevitably lead to a race. So, for example, recently Google CEO Sundar Pichai talked about how Google is trying to be responsible with releasing Bard, which is Google's answer to ChatGPT. But he didn't have too much to say about how Google is actually forced to release Bard, their AI, if they want to keep up with the competition represented by OpenAI and ChatGPT. So Rule 3 demonstrates that without coordination, this race is going to end in tragedy. And as far as our current looming tragedy, one thing is clear. There is no one person or company who can stop the release of AI products or the race for those products, but there could be an agreement between all technology companies, like a nuclear arms agreement between countries, that they will follow guidelines to make AI safer for the future of humanity. So the thing is, understanding and applying these 3 rules of humane technology is actually really essential for responsible AI innovation. Technologists got to be mindful of the power they're creating and the potential consequences. And we, the public, must also be mindful if, we want to participate in an AI future that includes us.